we received a message that a massive Christian army was on its way to take back what we had fought for. The Muslim leader Saladin had conquered so much that the Ayyubid Sultanate was going to be a very different enemy than the Fatimids were. Even since the Crusade started, the Ayyubid Sultanate had expanded. The Christian army was supposed to be huge, with the kings of England, France, and Germany all leading their armies to save us. Many people did not want to be saved by this type of army. Many people did not even know what we were being saved from. So what we're going to do, and welcome back. I figured so many of you were writing letters of the sieged that I needed to do a quick little tutorial and a quick little guide on what my expectations are and really what your expectations for yourself should be. So we're going to look at the citations, and we're going to look at elements of this, of writing historical narrative. So first off, I'm going to go over citations first because you have to do the citations with what you're doing. So the way I got my little sentence or my paragraph here was actually by just kind of going over some of the resources that we've looked at. So the first one is this resource, which you've either seen or will see. It's by a university or Utah State University professor, and did a wonderful job of kind of a tertiary source of summarizing things. And that's kind of what I was looking at, is specifically the Third Crusade. And talking about this leader named Saladin, and he recaptures Syria, he recaptures the Holy Land, and then my personal knowledge kind of expands past that with Saladin. But what I can say is just based on this reading, you can tell that this guy is really taking over a lot of area. But this doesn't give the whole picture. So I wanted to look into some of the historical maps that we have posted as well. Now, the historical maps are more for reference. I mean, you wouldn't want to draw property lines on this, but the world history maps, and this link is also on the site page. This guy just decided he was sick of trying to find maps, and so he's going to make his own. And he's got a lot of contributors, and kind of gets into where he gets the information from, and he's pretty open about it. And honestly, I've found them to be very trustworthy as well. So I'm really looking at this medieval history maps, and the part of the thing I was looking into is this 1025, this 1100, and this 1200, because we know that with Pope Urban's speech and Pope Urban's speech in 1095. I mean, so this 1025 is going to be prior to that. This 1100 is going to be coming up on the next section there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to dive in here and take a look at what I'm talking about when I say the Fatimid Caliphate. And so based on what we know of the dates here, we can see that the crusading armies fought the Fatimid Caliphate. They took Jerusalem, and then we have the 1100. We know that Jerusalem fell in 1099. We still have, the Fatimids here, and then the, Jerusalem's actually this number 40, and you can go down to number 40 and see that. And then you have Syria or Damascus for this period, and then over here we have the 1200s, right? So we have these little crusader states kind of along the line here, but then the Ayyubid Sultanate is what I'm talking about here when I write this narrative. So the whole piece of this is I was looking at the land expansion through the maps over time to give myself a sense of what that might have felt like. I mean, the people would not have had this map, but certainly knowledge of this expansion was wide ranging. And then the other piece is the things that were specifically stated here. And so what I did was I actually just went through with the with the citation machine, which I'm not going to get into because we've already done that several times. And I made citations for all the sources I was going to use. And those could just go in your source collector. Super easy. Once you have the citations, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece here, and I'm actually going to cite each little section of it. So the citations, I just copied and pasted over another Word document. You do not have to do this with this other Word document, but we have the overview article citation here, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put the citations where they belong. So for Chicago-style citations, what you're going to do is you're just going to copy this, and then you're going to go over here, and they come after the sentence at the end of or after the period at the end of a sentence. And you're going to just come up here to references, and we're going to be using the end note. So it says insert end note, and this is kind of goofy because it wants it in Roman numerals, and that's stupid. Nobody uses it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to end note. We're going to say format that as a 1, 2, 3. Apply. Okay, so now we're in end notes, and we're just going to insert an end note here, and we're going to paste it. It's that easy. With the exception that these are all, with the exception that everything I have over here was brought in, and so it's going to bring the formatting over. I don't want that formatting. I want that formatting to look like this. So we received a message that the Christian army was on its way. Okay, so that's not a specific thing out of here, but this is where I get the knowledge from it. So wherever you got the knowledge from it is where you're going to put that citation in. All right, then talking about Saladin. Well, that's another one. So you can do this a couple of ways. You can either add this in, say you got this from the main source. You're going to copy it and do that again. You're going to insert another endnote, and we're just going to paste it. That simple. Now you can clean up the formatting down here. So it's that simple. So now we're throwing in endnotes, and so if people want to know where we got the information we got, it doesn't disrupt the flow of the writing so much, but you can also see that we actually cite our sources here. And I said that Muslim had conquered so much that the Ayyubid, well, that's actually more than just one thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add another source up here. I'm going to add this 1025 AD, because I compared these two maps. I need to be able to show these two maps. So I'm going to insert the endnote, paste, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to say from the 1025 to the 1200. So I'm looking at this, this Third Crusade, 1200. I'm going to throw this up here. Insert endnote. And now for each of these, I'm going to go through and just kind of clean this up a little bit. And then up here, there's a couple ways you can handle this. You can put a space between them. You can put a comma between them and then put it all on superscript. I'm going to tell you that a space for this class is going to just work just fine. That way, it's not, endnote 234. All right. So, since the Crusades started, the Ayyubid Sultanate had expanded. So once again, grabbing these two, I'm actually just going to copy these right here. Copied it, paste it. So once again, I am referencing where I got my knowledge. Good, accurate history. Every single sentence in a page like this has some sort of grasp on where you got the information, especially when you start out. You want to be saying where you get your information the whole time. Now, this, where these people came from, right? Now, we know we got that from the same article, so we can just do the same thing, where we just grab this, we come up here to the same article, we copy it, bring it down here, we paste it, and the last part is the part that we made up. That we made that up. We don't have any sort of reference for that. We have no idea what happened, but we know that that might be a reasonable thing to assume, reasonable thing to think. And so this is kind of where we're going to get into the next piece of this, as is what it takes to write good historical narrative. Good historical narrative, um, for the elements of it is the setting. So the setting for good historical narrative, and I really should just kind of expand this and make it larger because it's really not doing me any favors here. Um, good setting makes you kind of feel like you were there. It's a physical description of the place as if you were there. And so I don't have any of that in my letter or my paragraph. But think about how you would describe the setting outside of your life, and then apply that backwards. You know that you're either in Syria or what would be modern day Syria, and so try to get the reader to feel like they're there. The next piece, this is kind of a big piece here, is the world building. The thoughts and attitudes of the time. You gotta think through this as if you're trying to teach something about the past. I would say that you're not writing history here. You are writing historically informed fiction. You're writing historically informed narrative. But adding in those snippets of the differences between our world and their world is going to be an excellent way to kind of bring that history to life. All right, so the next piece here is going to be characters. So for the most part, you're inventing your characters, and that's totally fine. Individuals existed then. Individuals exist now. You don't have to agree with the ideas of the past, or you don't have to, or your character doesn't even have to agree with the popular notion of the past. They could disagree with the world that you've built. They could be frustrated by that. I'm sure that good fiction often has characters that are frustrated by the world that the author has designed for them. You didn't design the world of the history of the past, but you're placing a character in it, and having a character that doesn't feel always comfortable there is a good driver. I would say be careful about presentism. Be careful about establishing humanism in your characters back then, or some of the modern notions that we have, because they simply don't exist. But you do want to create somebody with relatable values, I'll say. So next piece down would be the dialogue. And one thing I'm going to say is that there is no need to relearn Germanic languages. There's no need to write in Old English or Old French. Word choice is more or less there for the reader to drive the story along. Certainly you could dive into that, but once again, we're not writing this as historians. We're writing this informed by history as well as we can. Next piece down, we have a theme. And I would say that for themes, you want to pick a theme and kind of stick with it. This will cement your letters. This will cement your writing in such a way that it kind of tells that story over and over. And the theme oftentimes in good writing is not explicitly stated. The theme is something you're aware of. It keeps you on track, but the theme is not something that you necessarily tell your readers. Or really, you probably shouldn't tell the readers your theme, because that's part of the mystery. That's part of the reason you keep reading. It's part of the intrigue. I'll say the plot is pretty easy for a lot of this stuff, because the plot is going to have to somehow align to the real events, the real historical events. Now, the plot could be, the character's growing development of that, or their growing awareness of that, or the development of that historical event over time, and how it influences your character specifically. But spoiler alert, there are no spoilers in history as we know it, because we pretty much just what we know is what we know is what happened. You can usually just go into Wikipedia and try to figure out how this how this crusade ended. All right. The last thing here is going to be, or at least last thing I'm going to deal with on the themes part is conflict. So just like then, or just like now, back then, conflict existed, and conflict is a story driver. Conflict is what makes your reader interested and goes back to your story, because conflict needs to be resolved. I mean, not technically, but people want to see conflict resolved. And so therefore, if you create a conflict in somebody's mind, if you create a conflict that exists somewhere, people will often kind of go back and just revisit that to see how that conflict gets resolved. So conflict can be intrapersonal, kind of within oneself. I'm sure that with the themes that we've looked at historically and the reasons that people were going on crusade and the reasons the people were going and retaking land that had been taken in the Crusades, you can think of people who were internally conflicted. It could be interpersonal conflict, meaning just two characters that feel differently. It could be within a group, intra-group, meaning that different factions and different members of a single group are kind of breaking off. And honestly, if you're doing the Third Crusade, you're going to see a lot of that between the three kings. And then the final one would be intergroup, between two groups, and this is one we've talked about extensively in class. So at the very end, what I want to say is coming down to the with or without citations portion, and it looks like it's not doing me any favors here because it's not letting me scroll down. So I'm going to do this the creative way. There we go. With or without citations. So I want a copy of your letters like this. We're going to publish your letters like this with citations. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select all. We're going to copy. We're going to control new. We're going to paste it. And we're going to go back through and we're going to take all the citations out. And this is because, honestly, at the end of the day, as much as I love the citations and feel like a lot of them exist, we should have a copy kind of sans the citations just from the story's perspective. All right. Well, hopefully that clears some of the expectations up and some of the ideas up, and then goes back over the themes. I will have a link to the website I grabbed the themes from, which is this a writer of history, the 7 elements of historical fiction. I just thought it did a really wonderful job of summarizing and giving examples of what you should be thinking of, not only when you're doing your research, when you're laying out how your story is going to be written, and then finally when you write your story. My big nod to this, or my big addition to this, is that piece on citations. Readers and people deserve to know where you get your information. Something that we need more and more in our society is for authors and for anybody producing new information to do as much of their own fact checking as they can. You deserve to know that your information is trustworthy, and therefore I'm trying to get you to make a habit out of proving that your information is trustworthy, so that you feel shorted when other people don't prove it to you. All right, so thank you very much for coming. Make sure to leave your comments down below and smash a like button and